Friends, today is Saturday, the 1st of August, and it's the feast of St. Alphonsus Liguori, a great moral theologian. And a gospel today would be just the opposite of moral, a kind of snowball effect of evil because of immorality. It's the story of the beheading of John the Baptist, one of the most gruesome passages in the New Testament, both in Matthew, we have today, and even more detail in the Gospel of Mark. John in the Gospels becomes a proto-martyr, along with St. Stephen, the first martyrs of Christianity. And, of course, we say that the martyrs and the blood of martyrs is the seed of the church, the seed of the church. They become the first two, and of course many more after that great cloud of witnesses that the book of Revelation speaks of, in which people speak the truth, preaching the gospel, speaking the truth about moral issues, about every issue, but the truth, and paying the consequences for it, oftentimes death itself. And it's courage. It's not just ordinary courage. It's courage that, in a sense, is elevated and transfigured, which continues to inspire us to continue along the paths of the gospel and the path of truth itself. The gospel speaks to us of Herod the Tetrarch. Herod was the son of Herod the Great, who was Herod when Jesus was born. One of his sons, Herod the Tetrarch, who was superstitious, deranged, every possible difficulty and problem. He was no later. He was a puppet of the Romans, and he is responsible for the death of John. And because of his own weakness, John had spoken the truth to him. He didn't like it, and he killed him. And the gospel becomes a kind of flashback. Herod, as I say, superstitious, thinks John has come back to life in the person of Jesus, doing wonders and miracles and so on. And the story that leads to the beheading of John, I say it is a kind of snowball effect of evil. Herod moving into a marriage that was unlawful, that marriage then leading to the arrest of John the Baptist after he spoke out. The party the drunken party that Herod throws, during which he makes a promise to Herodias' daughter, Salome, who dances for the men. It would be unheard of at the time that a royal princess would perform in this way, but that's what everything has sort of descended into. And ultimately then to the beheading, presenting the head of John the Baptist on a platter. The irony of the reading today is that it is also the feast of St. Alphonsus Liguori, the great moral theologian. As immoral as everything Herod did, Alphonsus was the moral theologian, and kind of the father of modern moral theology. He moved the moral theology from the realm of just the legalistic to the love of God, to act morally for love, out of love for God. He was ordained in 1726. Not too long after that, he founded the Redemptorist order, the Congregation of the Holy Redeemer. He was a popular preacher at the time because he understood human lives and preached in a way that people understood, and he had the ability to steer a middle course when it came to moral theology, a middle course between rigorism and laxity. Something that's needed today, even in preachers, as we help people come to assist them in living a good and moral life, but keeping that middle road, keeping the balance between rigorism and laxity. He was the first to really preach the fact that the moral life is not one of tortured or legalistic compliance with laws, but rather it's living a life of love, and ultimately living a moral life, bringing happiness and peace to the person. And as obvious as some of that sounds, it was new at the time. Even today, I suspect, people don't really think of our moral prescriptions as living something out of love, but rather, no, don't do this, don't do that. It's that legalistic kind of thing. But the church has no interest in that legalistic aspect. What we do have interest in is living the life of love. And if we live the life of love, including our moral prescriptions, it brings about happiness and peace. Moral life, as I say, is essentially the love of God, love of neighbor, and the love of self. And again, Alphonsus, emphasized that circumstances can be important, and a well-formed moral conscience can be important. When it comes to judging the moral content of an action, and avoiding all relativism, as soon as you say circumstances, people think, oh, relativism, relativist. No, it's not that. It's simply taking into consideration what is it that makes up a moral act. We think of mortal sin, the traditional kind of definition of mortal sin. Circumstances come into play, and they're important. But oftentimes, what the church is usually wary of is to say that a wrong action can turn into a right one by circumstances. No. But it can reduce the moral culpability, and that's what's important here. Circumstances and a good moral conscience. Alphonsus wrote over 100 books, the most important of which was his moral theology. He's a doctor of the church and a pastor of the church, and we celebrate him today. Have a good day this Saturday, this weekend. Tomorrow's Sunday. I think it's the 18th Sunday of Ordinary Time, and we'll see you then.